You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Coming up, we'll recap Week 9, get you set for Week 10 games in the American, including our spotlight game of the week, Navy at Notre Dame. We'll be joined by Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network. He is standing by in the virtual green room to discuss that with us in just a few moments. But first, so did you really think things were going to be different this time for another American Athletic Conference team that is undefeated to be ranked in the top 4 of the college football playoff poll? Yes, they found a way to screw the American and the G5 once more. Georgia at 1, Alabama at number 2, Michigan State number 3, Oregon number 4, and the quote-unquote first 2 out are number 5, Ohio State, and number 6, Cincinnati. So the Bearcats were ranked 2nd in the country in the AP poll, cannot break into the top 4 of the college football playoff. They have 3 one-loss teams ahead of them: Alabama, Oregon, which has lost to a sub-500 Stanford, and Ohio State, who lost to Oregon. There you go. Once again, the committee finds a way to put the roadblocks in place, and they'll continue to do so. Mark my words on that. No surprise there. Well, I guess Cincinnati gets a little bit of a consolation prize this week. College Game Day on ESPN will originate from the Queen City as the Bearcats take on Tulsa in a rematch of the 2020 AAC Championship. The 9th time now that College Game Day has been centered on a game involving the AAC since the conference formation in 2013, and I imagine there'll be quite a bit of discussion about Cincinnati's plight in the college football playoff. Almost makes me wonder, did they also leave them out of the top 4 to generate a little extra buzz for ESPN's College Game Day? One might wonder. And of course, as we mentioned, Cincinnati still number 2 in the AP top 25. SMU and Houston are now ranked in the week's national polls. So that makes the American one of 4 FBS conferences with at least 3 ranked teams. The others are the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the Big 12. And there you go. Cincinnati and Houston now put themselves on the inside track for the AAC championship game. Those teams stand as the only squads without a loss in conference play. Houston did that by winning a wild 44-37 shootout against SMU on Saturday night. The Cougars getting the go-ahead touchdown on a 100-yard kickoff return by Marcus Jones with 17 seconds remaining, his 4th special team score of the year. That came after the Mustangs hit a 45-yard field goal with 30 seconds left to tie the game. Quarterback Clayton Tune had 412 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Nathaniel Dell caught 9 of those for 165 and 3 touchdowns. The Cougs now have won 7 straight, sitting atop the AAC standings at 5-0. SMU quarterback Tanner Mordecai threw for 305 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Mustangs dropped their first game of the season. Cincinnati, part of their college football playoff plight was because they were struggling against Tulane. They had to deal a second-half shutout to score the last 17 points to win 31-12 in that road contest. Quarterback Desmond Ritter, 3 touchdown passes, including 2 to tight end Josh Wiley, while running back Jerome Ford had 170 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Tulane, which was facing its 4th nationally ranked opponent in 8 games, had actually kept the game close 14-12 at the half behind running back Tyjae Spears. He had 106 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. UCF enjoyed what Coach Gus Malzahn called the night's best performance of the season, a 49-7 win at Temple. Quarterback Mikey Keene led the way of 5 touchdown passes. The UCF defense forced 3 turnovers. Wide receiver Ryan O'Keefe and tight end Alec Holler had 2 touchdown receptions each for the Knights, who are now 3-2 in conference. East Carolina scored the last 23 points in its 29-14 win against South Florida. Malik Fleming had a 31-yard interception return for a touchdown late in the third quarter to give the Pirates the lead for good. Running back Rajay Harris rushed for 100 yards and a touchdown. Quarterback Holton Ahlers, 298 yards of total offense as the Pirates get their overall record to 4-4. Navy got a 1-yard touchdown run in the second half from quarterback Ty Levitai, and also a 1-yard plunge from fullback James Harris, while kicker Bijan Nichols hit a late 48-yard field goal that provided the winning margin in their 2017 win at Tulsa. Navy finished with 302 yards of offense all on the ground as the midshipmen won without completing a pass. That's not the first time they've done that, by the way. Navy's defense held Tulsa to 294 yards of offense and forced 2 turnovers. Looking at this week's games, all games will take place on Saturday. SMU at Memphis at noon on ESPNU. Memphis leads the all-time series 9-4, and SMU won the last contest a year ago, 30-27. Temple at East Carolina, 3 p.m. on ESPN+, and the Owls lead the all-time series 10-8. East Carolina won last year, though, 28-3. Tulsa at Cincinnati, that's 3:30 on ESPN2. The Bearcats have a 1-game lead in the all-time series, 17-16. There have been 2 ties, and the Bearcats won last year, 27-24. Tulane at UCF, 4 o'clock on ESPNU. The Knights lead the all-time series 8-2 and scored a victory last year, 51-34. Houston at South Florida, 7:30 on ESPNU. The Cougs lead the all-time series 5-2 and romped in last year's game by a 56-21 score. Coming up next, our Spotlight Game of the Week as Navy takes on Notre Dame. Joe Miller, the Navy Radio Network, joins us to talk about that when the AAC report continues after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else at New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
Time now to talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week as Navy takes on number 8 Notre Dame. And joining us once again from the Navy Radio Network, it's Joe Miller. Joe, thanks for being here once again.
Oh, no problem, Jeff. Glad to come along.
All right, so let's talk about Navy's season so far. They are at 2-6 overall, 2-4 in conference, but the record not reflective of the performance, as they've had a lot of close contests. They've taken the 2 best teams in the conference, 8-point deficit there, 7 points against Cincinnati, 8 points against Houston, 7 points against SMU. So they have played the top of the conference very, very well. Have a victory against UCF and just beat Tulsa this past Friday night. So despite the 2-6 record, this is a team that seems to be going in upward momentum, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, it got off to a rough start that first game against Marshall, where they played a lot better than what the score indicated. And then it kind of got away from them against Air Force after a pretty good first half. And then I think they were left reeling there with some injuries and trying to deal with that. But they have, you can't say saved their season, but they've rectified it to a point where I think, look, you look at the Cincinnati game, you get a possession, you get the ball with a chance to tie the game on the last possession. I thought they played SMU and Houston pretty well. The one game that I would say that they struggled in was the Memphis game. As far as conference game, that's the game in which I think they've struggled more than any other game. For whatever reason, the Thursday night they just weren't in it. And I thought Memphis, for the most part, did kind of what they needed to do on offense. But outside of that, I think you see some signs. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, close game against Cincinnati. Last week, I thought for the second half was probably their most complete half of the season against Tulsa. And I think they're in a pretty good spot defensively. Look, they're still trying to figure out offensively some things. But I think we've seen an offense that has gotten better over the course of the season. And look, as we knew coming into the season, they've played some really good teams. I mean, I think you could argue that they might have had the toughest schedule so far in the AAC at this point, and in the manner in which they played and the teams that they've played. So, look, the expectations are always high at Navy to have a lot of success and be competitive in each and every game. And I think they show some signs of sort of getting to the point where they think, hey, we've got a shot in all these games down the stretch, and let's give it a go.
And talk about the play of quarterback Ty Lavatai. He's, been entrenched as the quarterback, and give me your assessment of his play so far.
I think he's gotten a lot more comfortable. We talked about it on the broadcast the other night. It's also on Friday night. Is like it seems like he's more familiar with where he needs to go and what he needs to do in the situation. I thought he played well against Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. I thought he threw the ball. I mean, they were 11 of 15. I think we knew going in that they were going to have to throw the ball a little bit more against Cincinnati, and he had some success doing that. He's done a good job as far as in the option. Had his best running game against Tulsa last week. So I think there's some positive steps, and he's a young guy. So I think what you're trying to build this season towards, look, you're trying to win every game left on your schedule, but you're also trying to build the quarterback position, which we haven't seen. We've had, really a stretch of almost 5 years now where it's been back and forth at the quarterback position. So you got a chance for a sophomore to establish himself going forward. And I think this program is a lot different when they have an experienced quarterback in there. So if you can get him the rest of the season, get some reps, and get him going in the right direction, I think they're pretty excited about what he can be down the line. So I think that's really the biggest thing from this season is just his progression. He's not going to be a speed merchant. He's not going to run he's not Malcolm Perry back there. He's not going to run for 150 yards. But I think they really like the way he can throw the football, and I think really he's starting to get a good grip and grasp of what they want to do offensively. So I think he's kind of coming into his own. And we've seen it the last two games where the Cincinnati game, more of a passing game than last week against Tulsa, really was by far his best game running the football.
Yeah, and of course, what our listeners have known through the years that you and I have been speaking about Navy football, Malcolm Perry didn't just, rise from the ashes. He had his struggles too.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the year going into 2019, which was the Liberty Bowl victory for the Mids. I mean, the question, I remember the first game of the season that year was why a lot of people around Navy was like, why is Malcolm starting at quarterback? Like, that was a legitimate, and then he had one of the best seasons in the history, maybe the best season in the history of Navy football at the quarterback position. I think you could make that argument. So it's just been up and down since then. Like, they've been searching for the guy, and they were searching for the guy when Malcolm was on the roster the year before. It's been 4 years since they've had a guy start more than 4 games in back-to-back seasons. So it's been a while since they've had some continuity at the quarterback position. Now, part of that is injuries. And you're going to get that in this type of offense. You're going to take some injuries at that position. So you always have to have the next guy ready and prepared to go. But I do think they're building a nice base with Lavatai at quarterback that I think going forward is something that they really want to build upon.
Yeah, and I think this also really speaks to how complicated this offense is to run.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they see the offense, they think it's overly simplistic, but it's not. That you're reading as much as any other quarterback in a pro style is reading your reads. You're doing that at the line of scrimmage and within the first couple seconds of the play. So, and the other part of it, and I go back to, and I think we've talked about this in the past, and I know I've talked about it. During this offseason, one of the things we talked about with the coaching staff was like, we talk about it all the time, like, getting the snap from center, like, and none of the quarterbacks that were on the roster at Navy played under center in high school. And it's rare to find a guy that at this point, takes the majority of his snaps in his high school career under center. So I was like, this seems simple, but how big of a deal is it? And I remember talking to one of the members of the coaching staff saying, look, it's a big deal. Like, it is a complete 180 from what they're used to their entire career. So it takes us about 3 to 4 weeks to sort of get that out of them. And not only do you have to get under center and make get the snap correct, but you also have to make the read at the same time. So I think some people think it's overly simplistic when the offense really is nothing like that. I mean, you're doing just as much as any other quarterback back there.
Yeah, and of course, one of the things that is always talked about, when facing Navy is teams, hate having to change their entire scheme on defense to figure out how to combat that. And of course, Navy's defense has certainly been a factor this season as well. But when you're getting those, you guys had a 21-play drive this season. When you're getting those long drives and just eating up the clock, it really is such a different challenge for the opposition.
Yeah, it was funny. I was listening to Brian Kelly's press conference today, and he was talking about sort of the similar thing. And his special teams coordinator said he wanted more time to spend with the special teams this week to deal with what some of the stuff the Navy's doing. And Brian kind of laughed and said, no, we can't have that time for special teams. We got to spend it on defense. And I think each and every team sort of addresses it differently. Tulsa was coming off a bye. We always look at that from the Navy perspective, like how many days did they have ready to prepare for it? What was who they play before? And it's always a factor, and I think it's unique in how teams play them. I think early in the season, the game plan for most teams was to be ultra aggressive, and it worked to some extent. And then I think the UCF game happened, and then people kind of like, all right, let's see what they're different with Lavatai at quarterback. And I think teams have played a little bit differently over the last, couple of games, but I'm always intrigued to see how teams try to attack it and sort of the preparation that each and every team has. And Cincinnati last year had Army on the schedule. I don't think that's a coincidence, that they would put Army on their schedule, similar style that they would have that in a year where they weren't playing Navy. They would still get those reps to go against this system.
Yeah, and talk about the Navy defense so far. Again, like I said, they are keeping games close, and the Cincinnati game is another great example of that.
No, I thought they played fantastic at the last couple weeks. This is a team that has suffered some injuries on the defensive side of the football field, and they're really at this point, Jeff. You're looking at that 4 freshmen to sophomore play major roles on this defensive team. And for any Rayon Lane, who had a big interception against Tulsa, for any freshman to get on the field at Navy is a pretty big deal. Just because what they have to go through in the summer, and then you start football training camp, you have to add your weight back on, and everything that goes through what happens when you get to Annapolis in plebe summer. And there's just hardly any expectations for those guys. And you have 2 freshmen and 3 sophomore that are really playing significant minutes for this team. Miles Straw is a young defensive lineman / linebacker hybrid who's just playing his tail off. And, of course, we knew that Diego Fago is one of the best linebackers in the conference. He's been their steady guy. He's been healthy this year. But it's really been impressive because they've had to battle through a lot of injuries. And the one thing that we always concern ourselves with at Navy is depth, because it's really inexperienced, and you don't really know until those guys got on the field. But I think Brian Newberry and his defensive staff have done a great job. It was a great game plan against Ritter and Cincinnati. And I thought last week, you look at Tulsa and Cincinnati, as much you want to talk about what they do offensively, it starts with them stopping the run, and they've done a really good job of stopping the run those 2 games. And really, like I said, the Memphis game is the only game where I don't think the defense really had a big time performance. They kind of struggled against Memphis for whatever reason that night. They just struggled. But other than that, I think consistently the defense has stopped the run and played pretty well. They've gotten pressure. They had 8 tackles for a loss against Tulsa. They had 7 against Cincinnati. So for Navy to get 15 in 2 weeks, that's pretty impressive for them. And I think the one thing you look at if you look towards this Notre Dame game is Navy's doing a good job of stopping the run. And obviously with Notre Dame in our recent history with Notre Dame, you got to stop the run first and foremost. And I think the way the defense is playing, I think you get some optimism because they are doing a good job stopping the run here the last few weeks and really the whole season for the most part.
Yeah, and of course you look at, so now this is a common opponent for Cincinnati and Navy playing Notre Dame, and it's very interesting because you look at the contrast of this, Cincinnati needs to run the table, and they need Notre Dame to keep running the table to help their chances down the road. Navy could end up being a spoiler if an upset happens.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because I don't look that was talking to Cincinnati people after the game. I think they kind of understood that it was going to be a tough game, and now they had a pretty tight first half with Tulane last week, and I think they're feeling a little bit of the pressure of trying to put up those numbers that impress people. So I just for me, Cincinnati, just go out and win and try to take care of your business. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the maybe there will be some people to compare the games going forward with, and it's just so tough because if you watch college football, the transitive property just doesn't exist. I mean, if A beats B and that doesn't, and then A beats C, it doesn't mean that B and C are terrible teams. I just feel like that you look at different comparisons, and each and every game is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I thought Cincinnati played their best game of the season against Notre Dame. Going back and watching that game, I thought they were fantastic in that game. It was probably the peak of their season. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Navy going into Notre Dame, just like Cincinnati was. Look, the last time we went there with Malcolm, I really thought for the first time Navy had a really good shot of not just winning in Notre Dame, and they've done that before in the past. It's been a while, and they've beaten Notre Dame in neutral sites over the last decade. In Jacksonville, most recently, they beat them in New Jersey, 35-17, in a game that I'll never forget because it was weird to see Navy dominating Notre Dame. Everybody was kind of looking around like, yeah, we are up 35-10 in this game, and yeah, this is the way it should be. But it's been a while since they won in South Bend, and I think they thought they had a decent shot last time out, and it just didn't go their way. They turned the ball over, they struggled on offense, so you can never be completely confident going into South Bend. But I do think the way they've played the last couple of weeks, if they can maintain that on the defensive side of the football field, I think it gives them a shot on Saturday.
Yeah, when you look at this Fighting Irish team, what are the keys that Navy has to take on in order to get an upset?
I think you got to stop Kyron Williams, who now North Carolina's really struggled in run defense, but he had a breakout game really for the first time in a while. They're banged up defensively. It looks like Kyle Hamilton is not going to play. They're banged up at linebacker. So, but look, as Kenny Niumatalolo will always tell you, you have to play a perfect game and then play a little bit better, and then maybe also get some luck to win in South Bend. But I do think you look at stopping the run. Buckner's played some at quarterback, but I would expect Hone to be the guy. So stopping the run, covering the tight end has always been an issue for us sometimes because it gets to the matchup that they have there at that position. It seems to be one that they can take advantage of. And on the defensive side of the football field, I think when you look at what Notre Dame has been this season, I think they're fantastic up front. That's always an issue with Navy. I always look at, how good is this team in the interior defensive line. They're strong there, so I don't think they're going to score a ton of points. But so I think if you're looking for if you're looking for Navy to pull the upset, it's probably more of a lower scoring game. I don't think you can get in a shootout with this team because I think they're really strong up front. So, but I think Navy, if defensively that they can slow down Williams, I give them a fair shot in this one.
And certainly, of course, it's going to be ball control and offense. That's the bread and butter.
Sure.
You throw another 21-play drive out there, your chances go up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, they had, I think, a 17-play drive or 16-play drive, against Cincinnati. So they've had some of these long drives this season. And look, time of possession. But I'll go back. I think we had the advantage almost 40-20 in the Memphis game in time of possession. So it can be a double-edged sword sometimes. But I do think that, look, that's part of the game plan. That was, look, they beat the most recent time they beat they beat Notre Dame was down in Jacksonville. And that was a game where Notre Dame punted one time. And that was the difference in the game. Navy scored on every possession, and Notre Dame punted one time and kicked a field goal inside the red zone. And the Mids ran out the clock. You talk about a 4-minute drill. Well, they got the ball back with just under 7 minutes to go, and they ran the clock out, and that's how they won. So that's the last win for Navy over Notre Dame, and I would imagine that you would need something similar this week against Notre Dame to pull the upset.
Well, of course, we've talked about this many times. This is a long time, series. This is about would be the 92nd meeting if I have my numbers correct.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Older than you and I both combined, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So you look at this and go, with all the things that change in college football, it's kind of nice to see one thing stay constant, right?
Yeah, definitely. And look, we didn't get a chance to play last year. They went full ACC. And look, I don't know. We haven't heard officially what the new, AAC is going to look like, obviously. But, I'm thinking if it's 8 games, that works out well. Then you have, if you have 8 conference games, that means that Navy's not going to be able, that Navy's, traditional out-of-conference schedule, which is Army, Air Force, those aren't changing, and Notre Dame will stay the same. So after a year's break, it was crazy because last year, we were supposed to open the season in Ireland against Notre Dame on the opening, the week 0 of the college football season, and obviously that did not happen. So not being able to play them last year, it's always – look, I'm a big – as you know, I'm a huge college football guy and a fan and somebody that loves the history of this game. So it's always cool to go to South Bend. It's cool to go to Notre Dame Stadium and partake in that. So it's always fun and look forward to the game. But, yeah, it's a nice tradition. Navy doesn't really have to worry about their out-of-conference schedule many times. It's already set in stone with one game, maybe the one chance that you'll have any difference each year. So it's cool that you kind of always – you're playing Notre Dame, you're playing Air Force, you're playing Army, and then obviously with your conference schedule now.
Yeah, and of course, you did bring up, what is the American going to look like? Of course, we with the realignment with UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati to depart, and then 6 schools coming in from Conference USA, and we're watching Conference USA evaporate before our very eyes.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I remember, early, obviously, we opened the season with Marshall, who was a Conference USA team that looks like they're going to the Sun Belt. And it was, I was watching a couple weeks ago, one of the Louisiana Tech UTSA game, and they were talking to Skip Holtz about it. And, he seemed genuinely, down on depressed about it. Where are we going to go? And it's crazy to think that the Sun Belt is sort of gobbling these teams up, but if you really look at where the Sun Belt is and the teams within their conference, it kind of makes some sense there. So it's crazy to see what has happened to Conference USA. And look, I think when you look at what the AAC is doing, they try to go big. And I've said many times before, I'm all for it. This thing is going to change many times. As far as people like to look at it, what does it look like in 2021? But in reality is you're trying to project forward for these conferences and trying to get the best case scenario. I'm interested to see how they align things. Obviously, as you know, Navy started out in the West when they joined the AAC. I'd be interested to see where they line up here. It seems like to me it makes more sense to be in the East. Will there be 8 conference games or 9 conference games? I think there'll probably be 8. And I think then you're looking at really not a ton changes for Navy as far as scheduling wise. If they are in the East, you'll obviously add maybe a Charlotte to it, but I think and maybe an FAU to the mix. But we've played FAU, so it kind of feels sort of familiar. We've played them over the last couple of years a couple times. We were there for Lane Kiffin's debut as head coach at FAU, so I think it works. Look, I think if Navy's in the East, you're playing 8 conference games, I think it works out pretty well for the Mids.
Yeah, it is crazy. With all the changes going on, we do have to remind the audience that this has been going on in college football forever. There used to be conferences called like the Metro Conference and the Southwest Conference. This is just par for the course.
and to me, it's more about like the 12-team playoff or an expanded playoff is more the important conversation to me.
Yeah,
like I understand like. Look, from my perspective in Navy, and we've talked about this before, I'm just happy they're in a conference. Like I feel like they put themselves in the perfect position. If it is an expanded playoff, just give me a chance. If Navy goes undefeated to be in the mix, and I'm a happy person. Mm-hmm. Just make sure that opportunity is out there, and that's to me as a college football fan. That's all you can ask for. And if we get to expanded playoff, I mean, I understand where all these conversations are going for big teams, and I understand why UCF and Houston and all these teams. I understand that the check's going to get bigger for those places, but I don't think that was ever the goal for Navy. To be quite honest with you, I mean, obviously, there's nobody's going to turn away money, but the opportunity to get into a playoff is, I think, where they want to be. And if they go undefeated in an AAC and go 12-0 and 13-0, that's what I'm concerned about, that they have that opportunity if one day that happens. And I think they would in a conference situation.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And, I guess, have you heard any, it was hot talk during the summer. It got quiet with the realignment. Have you heard any rumblings about the 12-team playoff being back on the table for further discussion?
I think I haven't heard anything specific. It seems like that conversation is going to restart here, which I think is, makes sense. Like if you're going to have this conversation, look, everybody got caught off guard by Texas and Oklahoma. Like it literally happened like a couple days after it seemed like they were completely convinced that there was going to be an expanded playoff. And then all of a sudden, that got put on the back burner because of Texas and Oklahoma's move. And look, I just feel like it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, I feel like you automatically need to have an expanded playoff to sort of make sure that an 8-4. I feel like you're putting yourself in a difficult situation if you're only with that power of a conference, only 4 teams in the playoffs. But we'll see how it goes. I've always wondered, and we've gotten close a couple times, like what the committee would do if Navy got to a point that won the AAC and got in this position to be selected for a playoff. Would they really leave Navy out of the loop? And I just feel like that would be a wonderful national conversation for college football. I hope one day we get to that point, and I'm always looking forward to that conversation if it ever gets there.
All right. So what's your thoughts about Saturday's game? Final word.
I think I was talking when we were flying back from Tulsa on Friday night. We were having a little conversation on the airplane. I think, look, maybe I'm biased, but I think we've got a live shot. I think we do have a shot against Notre Dame. I just don't know, in the last couple of years, playing Ian Book, like I have huge respect for Ian Book. I know some people around the national landscape, would always he can't beat Clemson, he can't beat Alabama, but he was just a really good college quarterback. And not having him makes me feel better, but we'll see how Jack Cohn does in the game. But I really feel like if we can keep them under 30 points, which I think we do have a shot of doing, then we've got a shot there. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm optimistic, Jeff.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to the big game on Saturday on NBC. And Joe Miller, it's always a pleasure talking Navy and college football with you. We appreciate you being on the show once again.
Thanks, Jeff. Always have a good time.
Navy at Notre Dame, 3:30 on NBC. Notre Dame leads the all-time series 77-13, and there's been one tie. And the last matchup, as we mentioned during our conversation with Joe Miller, was played back in 2019. Notre Dame won 52-20. The offensive player of the week is Nathaniel Dell of Houston. As we mentioned, he had 9 receptions, 165 yards, and 3 touchdowns, becoming the first Cougar player with 3 TD catches since the 2018 season in their victory over SMU. The defensive player of the week, Malik Fleming of East Carolina, had the pivotal defensive play in their victory over South Florida, 31-yard interception return for a touchdown in the third quarter. And Marcus Jones, the special teams player of the week, by virtue of that game-winning kickoff return with 17 seconds left to play. More news and notes, soccer, volleyball, cross country, and more when the AAC report continues after this.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Memphis and SMU advanced to the semifinals of the 2021 AAC Women's Soccer Championship after they picked up victories this past Sunday. The third-seeded Tigers defeated 6th-seed UCF 2-0 and will face the number 2 seed Houston in the first semifinal. That'll take place on Thursday in Tampa. Number 4 seed SMU took down number 5 seed East Carolina 2-1. And they will advance to face the number 1 seed, South Florida. And again, that will be Thursday as well. And both semifinals will air on ESPN+. And those 4 squads looking to advance to Championship Sunday. South Florida is looking to make its 5th consecutive AAC Championship final in 7 out of the last 9 years. SMU looking to advance to its 2nd appearance in the final. This is Houston's first semifinal appearance, while Memphis has been in the final twice in 2018 and 2019 and faced the Bulls both times, winning in 2018. The Offensive Player of the Week, Grace Storty of Memphis, scored a pair of goals in the Tigers' 5-0 win over SMU. The Defensive Player of the Week, Haley Spray of the Tigers, and helping them not to allow a shot on goal. And the Goalkeeper of the Week, Michaela Gracia of Houston, recorded 4 saves in the shutout win over Tulsa. And the Rookie of the Week, Jocelyn Alonzo, scored a goal and added an assist in the SMU victory. And of course, now that the season has come to a close in the regular season, the women's soccer honors for the entire season. The Offensive Player of the Week, Sydney Nacello of South Florida. The Defensive Player of the Year, Ashley Barron of Cincinnati. The Midfielder of the Year is Daria Rajay of UCF. And the Goalkeeper of the Year is UCF's Caroline Delisle. Rookie of the Year, Haley McWhirter of East Carolina. The Coaching Staff of the Year is Houston, headed up by head coach Diego Bocanegra. And the Team Fair Play award goes to UCF. All-Conference First Team, Caroline Delisle of UCF, Daria Rajay of the Knights, along with teammate Kristen Scott, Ashley Barron of Cincinnati, Jasmine Grant of Houston, Tanya Boychuk of Memphis, Grace Storty, her teammate, South Florida's Vivian Bissett and Cheyenne Dennis, along with Sydney Nacello, SMU's Courtney Sabasco, and she is joined and rounded out the first team by Emily Kavanaugh of Temple. All-Conference Second Team, Vanessa DiNardo of Cincinnati, Haley McWhirter of East Carolina, along with her teammate Kim Sanford, Mia Brascia and Emma Clark of Houston. Memphis teammates Myra Joan and Haley Spray. South Florida had a pair with Sydney Martinez and Sabrina Wagner. SMU had 4 players on the second team, Wayne Bellata, Brooke Golick, Katina Sapos, and Elizabeth Say. The all-rookie team, Ariel Young of UCF, Paige Miller of Cincinnati, Haley McWhirter of East Carolina, Samantha Way of Houston, Jocelyn Alonzo, along with her Memphis teammates Aubrey Mister and Momo Nakayo, Madeline Penman-Durstein of South Florida, Elizabeth Say of SMU, Sammy Neves of SMU, Moav Anderson of Temple, and Madison Williams of Tulsa. Turning to men's soccer for the first time since joining the American in 2014, Tulsa has secured the regular season conference silverware at a 3-2 win road victory at Temple. The Golden Hurricane clinched the top spot in the league table and will host the men's soccer championship at Hurricane Stadium November 10th and 13th. The Golden Hurricane are in search of their 4th American tournament title after sweeping the postseason event between 2014 and 2016, and they most recently claimed a regular season crown as a member of Conference USA in 2009. The Offensive Player of the Week, Skage Simonson of SMU, picked the perfect time to get his season goal account going, getting a hat trick in the 5-0 victory at UCF. Defensive Player of the Week, Brandon Torwegi of SMU, as they had a 1-0-1 week, including a scoreless draw with the American regular season champion Tulsa. The Goalkeeper of the Week, Cole Johnson of SMU, had a pair of clean sheets in their unbeaten week last week. And the Rookie of the Week, Mads Westergren. He shined for SMU during those 2 starts as well. Volleyball, on the strength of 7 straight victories, UCF still holds a 2-match lead in the latest American standings, 11-1 in conference play. Houston, the closest pursuer to the Knights, at 9-3. The Cougars handed UCF its only conference loss, which would help Houston make up ground in the event the teams end up with matching records heading into their season finale showdown in Houston on November 26th. The Offensive Player of the Week, McKenna Melville, repeated as the top offensive player with a huge week for the 2-0 Knights on the week. The Melville, I should say, was first in the American with 6.67 points per set, second with a .536 hitting percentage, seventh with 3.83 digs per set in those 2 starts. Defensive Player of the Week, Rachel Tullis of Houston, had a second straight Defensive Player of the Week award as they had a 2-0 week. She led the conference with 1.57 blocks per set, hit .367 with 3.14 points per frame in those victories. And finally, in cross country, Tulsa remained atop the American Athletic Conference, once more sweeping team titles for the second time this calendar year. The Tulsa men earned their 8th straight championship since joining the American in 2014, breaking the championship record score previously set by the Golden Hurricane with just 19 points to win the men's 8K team title. Scott Beatty claimed his first American individual championship after finishing as runner-up in each of the past 3 races with a course record time of 23:49.2, leading the Tulsa lineup. Peter Lynch was on his teammate Hale's 23.54, Michael Power 24:03.5, Shea McAvoy 24:04.2 were in 4th and 5th place respectively. Chris McLeod captured the American Freshman of the Year honors with a 7th place showing 24:24.8, and Malte Propp crossed the line in 13th place with a time of 24:43.2, and Christian Baker rounded out the Tulsa scores 15th place with a time of 24:49.4. Alex Sandusky rounded out the podium as the top finisher from Cincinnati, taking 3rd with a 23:57.8 time. Tyler Worth broke into the top 10 with a time of 24:34.3 for 8th place for the Bearcats. And on the women's side, Tulsa 3rd straight women's 6K championship, their 5th overall, with a score of 48 points. Caroline Miller, the top individual finisher for the Golden Hurricane, with a 4th place time of 21:28.2. Chloe Hirschenau, 21:34.9, and Katharina Pessendorfer, 21:36.9, crossed in order at 6th and 7th, respectively. As Alice Newcomb had a 22:03.0 score, 15th overall. Chloe McEachran, 22:10.9 for 16th overall. Sarah Scott, 22:17.8 for 20th overall. And Keely Jones, 22:24.3, 21st overall. Adding points, scoring runs for Tulsa, and Wichita's Yasmin Wright brought home the 4th straight American gold medal for the Shockers, and she had the championship time of 21:03.3. Her win came after Winnie Koskay swept the top spot in each of the previous 3 American cross-country meets from 2018 to 2020. It's going to wrap up a very busy edition of this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88 and the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.